Vice President J.D. Vance had some good news regarding trade. This is what he said today, Tuesday.
As many of you are aware, both of our governments are hard at work on a trade agreement built on shared priorities, like creating new jobs, building durable supply chains, and achieving prosperity for our workers. In our meeting yesterday, Prime Minister Modi and I made very good progress on all of those points. And we are especially excited to formally announce that America and India have officially finalized the terms of reference for the trade negotiation. I think this is a vital step. Thank you. I believe this is a vital step toward realizing President Trump's and Prime Minister Modi's vision, because it sets a roadmap toward a final deal between our nations.
It is also another sign that J.D. Vance, our vice president, is being molded to take on the role of foreign diplomacy if and when he's ever called to be POTUS. What this is about is they did a state visit to India. He went with his wife and 3 children, and it was his first time visiting the birthplace of Usha's parents. And then last night on Monday, they had a dinner with Prime Minister Modi. And then today, as you heard, they announced what came of that dinner. So this is obviously very good news when it comes to President Trump and his agenda and his policies of renegotiating trade deals. We've got some more good news on that front. We have a giant pharma company coming stateside. Simon Kent reporting this morning. Trump effect, Swiss pharma giant Roche to invest $50 billion in U.S. I don't know why I pronounced that as if that were German. I don't know. Swiss pharmaceutical giant Roche announced Tuesday it will invest upwards of $50 billion in the United States over the next 5 years, a move that follows in the wake of President Donald Trump's announcement of proposed tariffs on imported drugs. The U.S. is a critical market for the pharmaceutical industry, representing more than half of the revenue of Roche's pharmaceutical division. And as we know, its competitor, Novartis, announced earlier this month that it plans to invest $23 billion in the U.S. over 5 years. So $73 billion worth of investments and production here in the United States from 2 big Swiss pharma companies. Did you see that happen under Biden? No, of course not, because he was a globalist puppet. President Trump is about America and America first. And that is the crux, that is the focus of everything that President Trump does for America and Americans first. Okay, let's get into the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court taking up the religious right dispute over alphabet Q books in Maryland schools. The Supreme Court is hearing arguments over the religious rights of parents in Maryland to remove their children from elementary school classes using storybooks with LGBTQ characters. The Supreme Court is hearing the arguments today over these parents' rights. It's the latest dispute involving religion to come from the conservative-led court. The justices have repeatedly endorsed claims of religious discrimination in recent years. The Montgomery County Public Schools in suburban D.C., of course, introduced the storybooks as part of an effort to better reflect the district's diverse population. Parents sued after the school system stopped allowing them to pull their kids from lessons that included the books. The parents argued that public schools cannot force kids to participate in instruction that violates their faith, and they pointed to the opt-out provisions in sex education classes. The schools said allowing children to opt out of the lessons had become disruptive. Oh, we don't want anything to be disruptive to their agenda of normalizing deviancy in front of for our children, or at all. We don't want to impede their efforts to continue with the brainwashing and the indoctrination of our children now, do we? The school said allowing children to opt out of the lessons had become disruptive. Lower courts backed the schools, prompting the parents' appeal to the Supreme Court. 5 books are at issue in the High Court case, touching on the same themes found in classic stories that include Snow White, Cinderella, and Peter Pan, the school system's lawyers wrote. In Prince and Knight, two men fall in love after they rescue the kingdom and each other. In Uncle Bobby's Wedding, a niece worries that her uncle will not have as much time for her after he gets married. His partner is a man. Love, Violet deals with a girl's anxiety about giving Valentines to another girl. Born Ready is a story of a transgender boy's decision to share his gender identity with his family and the world. Intersection Allies describes 9 characters of varying backgrounds, including including one who is gender fluid. Billy Mogs, a board member of the Kids First Parents group that sued over the books, said the content is sexual, confusing, and inappropriate for young school children. It also obviously pushes an agenda. The writers group PEN America said in a court filing that the Parents One is a constitutionally suspect book banned by another name. PEN America reported more than 10,000 books were banned in the last school year. And once again, folks, this is the misrepresentation, always the misrepresentation from the left and those that want to propagandize and indoctrinate our children. This is not censorship or even banning. This is simply the parents want to be able to have their children opt out of that instruction, and the state saying, no, we know what's best for your children, and we want to make sure that we can push what our thoughts, philosophies, and ideologies are on your children. Once again, this is absolutely a parent's right. This is not even censorship. The parents aren't even asking for these books not to be used or banned. They're asking for the ability to simply be able to opt their children out of instruction that includes these books, which, let's look at them again. They are obviously with the purpose of pushing an agenda. Prince and Knight, Uncle Bobby's Wedding, Love, Violet, and Intersection Allies. Come on. The names are already telling you of these books that there's an agenda being pushed here. Let's continue our reporting and conversation about the courts. Let's stay with the Supreme Court. We have President Trump blasting the Supreme Court over their ruling on the Alien Enemies Act deportations. President Trump obviously having very, very strong opinions about this. President Trump truthed out yesterday. I'm doing what I was elected to do, remove criminals from our country, but the courts don't seem to want me to do that. My team is fantastic, doing an incredible job. However, they are being stymied at every turn by even the U.S. Supreme Court, which I have such great respect for, but which seemingly doesn't want me to send violent criminals and terrorists back to Venezuela or any other country for that matter. People that came here illegally. The courts are intimidated by the radical left who are playing the ref. Great Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito correctly wants to dissolve the pause on deportations. He is right on this. If we don't get these criminals out of our country, we are not going to have a country any longer. We cannot give everyone a trial because to do so would take, without exaggeration, 200 years. We would need hundreds of thousands of trials for the hundreds of thousands of illegals who we are sending out of the country. Such a thing is not possible to do. What a ridiculous situation we are in. Make America great again. Now, President Trump had a follow-up truth post to that, which we'll go through in a second. But let's look at this. Let's look at this. President Trump making very, very important points, and then he really hits it home with his follow-up post. But we have here that he was elected to do this job. He is a representative of the people. He is, remember, the United States president is the only representative that is voted on by everyone in the United States. This is the reason why we have an electoral college system, folks, so that it wouldn't be tyranny of the masses. If we go back to the time of our founding of our country, of Boston, New York, and Philadelphia and some big cities, we have an electoral college so that everyone in the United States has a voice in our representative at the executive, the president. It's the only political position in the United States government that we all as Americans vote for. And we as a country voted for him to remove these alien criminals from our country. But the courts don't seem to want me to do that. Yeah, they don't want him to do that. They want status quo. He gives great kudos to his team that are doing an incredible job at all the levels of government, but they are being stymied by the courts, even the U.S. Supreme Court, which he says he has great respect for, but who don't seem to want him to send these violent criminals back to where they need to go. Then he references, like I showed you, the great Alito. I showed this to you. I did a live stream about this a few days ago. This great opinion by Samuel Alito about how the courts were wrong on stopping President Trump, even if it's a for now movement of him being able to remove these criminal aliens under the Alien Enemies Act. And then this is very important. Logistics. It would take years and years to trial these people. They are here illegally. They do not have the same due process. They are here illegally. We just take them out of our country. They didn't come in legally. End of story. You go out. We don't sit here and sit down with tea and crumpets if you break in my house to talk about if you should be removed or not. Castle domain. You come in, I take you out of my castle. You do not have rights to be in my castle. So he brings up the logistics, but then he really, really hammers it home with the next truth post, making the absolute comparison between what we're going through now and the double standard of what happened when Biden facilitated all this. How can Biden let millions of criminals into our country totally unchecked and unvetted with no legal authority to do so, yet I, in order to make up for this assault to our nation, am expected to go through a lengthy legal process separately for each and every criminal alien? As usual, two different standards only leading to the complete and total destruction of the USA. Make America great again. And folks, we have seen this. We saw this when President Trump came in his first term. Obama could create DACA out of thin air. And when President Trump tries to unravel it, nope, the courts stymied him on that. He tried to undo what the previous Obama administration had done, Obama administrations 1 and 2 had done, and he was stymied and stopped. And then here we are again in his second term, and once again, they're stymieing and stopping what the Obama 3.0 administration did and allowing these hordes to invade our country. Absolutely correct, President Trump. Two different standards, which will lead to complete and total destruction of our country. Man, is this frustrating. President Trump isn't the only one calling out the courts, though. We have a federal judge, a Trump appointee, slamming far-left ACLU activists for their secret attempt to influence the court and using an improper ex parte communication. So people who love the rule of law, who value our traditions of law and order, are getting very frustrated. And it is good to see that it's not just President Trump taking up this cause, but obviously, the DOJ, Pam Bondi, and others. But it's also good to see, after getting stabbed in the back by Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch in this particular case, that some Trump appointed judges are holding the line. Let's get into these details. In a scathing rebuke, U.S. District Judge James Wesley Hendricks, a Trump appointee, issued a blistering court order chastising the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, for attempting to engage in an ex parte communication, a serious breach of judicial ethics, in a high-profile case involving illegal aliens detained at the Bluebonnet Detention Center. Ex parte communications are interactions where one party or their representatives communicates directly with a judge or decision maker about a pending case without notifying the other parties. The case, WMM versus Trump, involves petitioners represented by ACLU Deputy Director Lee Gerlant, who left a voicemail for Judge Hendricks on the evening of April 17, 2025, demanding immediate action to halt the removal of detainees at the Bluebonnet Detention Center. Gerlant's message, which the court attached to its order, claimed that his clients were being coerced into signing an alien enemy's orders for immediate deportation. He brazenly requested to talk to the judge immediately or have the court issue an order to stop the removals, demands that Judge Hendricks noted could have given the ACLU a substantive, procedural, tactical advantage in their bid for a temporary restraining order. We hear all this talk from the left. Oh, no one's above the law. You got to follow the law, what have you. But of course, when it doesn't go their way, they just want to rebel and resist or what have you. Luckily, Judge Hendricks is a by-the-books kind of guy who adhered to the code of conduct for federal judges. He minced no words in condemning the ACLU tactics. He emphasized that substantive ex parte communications are strictly prohibited, citing precedent law. As a general rule, Substantive ex parte communications with the court are prohibited. The rules governing judicial ethics prohibit judges from engaging in substantive ex parte communication concerning pending matters. You can pause here if you want to read what the complete order here. But he goes on to say that the ACLU's voicemail does not meet the narrow exception for permissible ex parte contact, as it addressed core issues in the petitioner's motions and sought to bypass the government's right to respond. And the exception is even when circumstances may require such communications, the code limits such communication situations where the ex parte communication does not address substantive matters and the judge reasonably believes that no party will gain a procedural or tactical advantage, which is what he addressed, that they would do so. The court further noted that the ACLU had already been ordered to justify why they should not provide notice to the government under the rules, and they failed to adequately address that before resorting to this off-the-record stunt. So these people play dirty. These people play dirty. What we expect from treasonous, traitorous rat bastards who hate the rule of law, hate the Constitution, and want to side with illegal aliens and enemy combatants. Remember, these are military-aged men, and many of them military trained in Venezuela and other places, walking in unvetted to our country illegally, and we're just sending them back where they came from. Why is that so difficult? Oh yeah, because if you hate America and you hate Trump, you just make things difficult just for the sake of making things difficult. Now I want to go back to President Trump. President Trump is not done calling out what he feels are injustices and calling people to task. We have President Trump once again calling out Fed Chair Jerome Powell, asking him yet again to lower the rates, not helping us out any. Of all the appointees that President Trump made in his first term, the one he may regret the most is Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. With a year left in his tenure and a clear reluctance to help America through these tough times because of political reasons, Powell must decide whether to lose face and do what's right or continue to defy economic common sense. President Trump isn't making it easy on him, launching another attack on Truth Social. So let's look again, once again, what President Trump is communicating. Remember, Truth Social, the whole point of Truth Social was to get through all the noise of the mainstream media, and at that time, Twitter and others trying to silence or suppress or shadow ban President Trump. So Truth Social was created for us on the right and President Trump to be able to get his words out. And this is a platform that he uses to communicate, like he did yesterday to Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many. With energy costs way down, food prices, including Biden's, I love this, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down, there's virtually no inflation. With these costs trending so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can almost be no inflation. But there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it came to the election period, when he lowered it in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala, get elected. How did that work out? So there we go. And I'm sure the left picked up on the inconsistent use of 2 and 2. Folks, once again, this just shows the bias that President Trump is and has been pointing out today, as we saw a few moments ago, pointing out that he's got the burden of, and his DOJ, of having 200 years worth of backlog before we can take illegal aliens out. But Biden, it was fine with him just not following the laws, the rules, and literally giving a red carpet treatment and breaking his oath as President of the United States to defend the Constitution and defend our sovereignty by bringing in all these illegal aliens. Yet they make it tough for him. And I commented on this during the time when it happened. But what can Joe Biden do? Oh, Joe Biden has complete blessing to go ahead and he had the blessing of Jerome Powell cutting interest rates at that time. Of course, yes, it was political to help the status quo stay in power. And President Trump, I love how he says, how did that work out? Obviously, it didn't, because President Trump is back in the Oval Office where he should be. And boy, did we dodge a bullet there, didn't we? For us, at least, it worked out very, very well. And by us, I mean by we, the people, American citizens. Not so much for criminals and not so much for illegal aliens, which is why we are seeing what we're seeing in this lawlessness from the courts and from the Democrats. As I reported yesterday, there's 4 more Democrats that want to join in on the Salvadoran party of visiting Obrego Garcia. And I find this very interesting from Democrat Representative Frost, who went down there, who says that the Supreme Court is corrupt and it's illegitimate. But somehow, right now, it's not corrupt and illegitimate, and Trump should follow what they say. Once again, like President Trump has pointed out in this same report I'm doing for you several times, it's a total double standard. Since I'm talking about double standards, let me slip this story in real quick right now in this report. Minnesota state employee who vandalized 6 Teslas causing $20,000+ in damage will not face charges. If you recall, I had reported on this that he'd gone around scratching Tesla cars, engraving things while walking his dog, and he worked for Tim Walz's administration. Well, of course, it's a double standard. He did all these things, but he's not going to pay the consequence for his actions, not in any meaningful way. Hennepin County, Minnesota has decided not to file criminal charges against a 33-year-old state government employee who admitted to causing over $20,000 in damages to 6 Tesla vehicles in a politically motivated vandalism spree last month. Dylan Brian Adams, a 33-year-old Minneapolis resident and Minnesota Department of Human Services employee, will not face criminal charges for vandalizing 6 Tesla vehicles in downtown Minneapolis over the course of a few days in March. The damages to the vehicle ranged from $1,600 to over $10,000, totaling more than $21,000 in damages. Instead of pressing charges, the county attorney's office there in Hennepin has elected to have Adams be entered into an adult diversion program designed for first-time low-level offenders. Oh, isn't that just nice of them? So for him not to get the full treatment like anybody else would have gotten? Of course not, because once again, we're dealing with a 2-tiered system. I don't know if you guys have seen or haven't seen what he did, but let me show this to you. Let me show this to you for those of you that hadn't seen it. Here's a compilation, about 30 seconds, of the various times, not just one time, various times that he, as a vandal, has been guilty of personal property destruction. Look, this is the back. He's engraving something with his dog, scratching it. Like, this is deliberate. Goes out of his way with his dog here. Look, let's just key that car that someone paid for. Oh, let's go walk around the car, look around, and oh, there we go. Was that a Golden State Warriors jersey? Look at that. Taking his time. No shame in this guy's game. No shame in his game. And this one's the one that went the most viral. Crossing the street to just totally scratch that car out. Total 2-tier system yet again. But if you look at what you can find on Twitter, who was behind, who backed the Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, it would come as no surprise. Yet another Georgie Porgy operative. Yeah, Dustin, it is absolutely infuriating and frustrating. So because the Hennepin County Attorney Office has opted not to press charges but enter him into an adult diversion program that was designed for first-time, low-level offenders. It's not his first time. He was caught on camera doing this several times. First time he's caught, but he was caught committing the same crime various times. The office stated that their main priorities are to secure restitution for the victims and hold Adams accountable, but not really, believing that the diversion program will best facilitate these goals. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara expressed frustration with the decision not to charge Adams with what would have been multiple felony counts. Multiple felony counts. And he's getting none of them. He's getting this diversion program. Oh, but he's still going to be held accountable. My goodness gracious. The Minneapolis Police Department did its job. It identified and investigated a crime trend, identified and arrested a suspect, and presented a case file to the Hennepin County Attorney Office for consideration of charges. This case impacted at least 6 different victims and totaled over $20,000 in damages. Any frustration related to the charging decision of the Hennepin County Attorney should be directed solely at her office. Our investigators are always frustrated when the cases they poured their hearts into are declined. In my experience, the victims in these cases often feel the same. And I would say that we've all been victims of this two-tier system. And this is yet another example. As a nation, we had to deal with the unchecked tyranny of Georgie Porgy and Obama, who were running the administration supposedly known as the Biden-Harris administration, and given carte blanche to completely destroy our country. But President Trump and his warriors, remember President Trump, the one that we elected as an American citizenry, nope, he is stymied, blocked, and opposed at every turn. And so it goes, but luckily he's a fighter, Hegset's a fighter, and everyone else pretty much is a fighter over in the Trump territory. And we're just going to continue like we have been seeing for the last several years, this two-tier system, but hopefully it will turn around. At least that's my hope. Thanks for joining me here, folks. Please don't forget to hit the like button. That's the biggest thing you can do. And make sure you hit the notification bell. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well. I may or may not have a live stream later tonight, but if you hit the notification bell, you'll know if I do or not. Until then, ciao, goodbye, God bless, and once again, thank you for your support of this program.